F2 returned last week for a chaotic and wet race weekend in Zandvoort, and we're back this weekend for the final round of Formula 3 and the penultimate round of Formula 2. Welcome to episode 20. I can't believe it's episode 20. We had to double check before going live today, and we were thinking it was like episode 17 or something, but yeah, episode 20. This is Formula Talk, and as mentioned, we will be reviewing Zandvoort and previewing Monza for this weekend. My name is Sophia, and joining me as always is the lovely Tom Downey.
If you can find the mute button, hello.
How are you?
I'm cold. I'm
I
really
know
cold.
it's changing.
Welcome to the UK, by the way. Mind you, it's my own fault 'cause I'm sitting here in shorts. So,
Fair
which
enough. I mean,
which I didn't do for any of June, July, or August. So, yeah.
I'm excited for this weather change. This is why I moved to the UK. But before we get into this episode, we must thank our sponsor, BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games, available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on all the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that is BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. And as always, if you've enjoyed this podcast, we would love it if you would take 5 to leave us a 5-star rating on Spotify or a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're one of the 72% of people who have not yet subscribed to the channel, please consider helping us out with a like, subscribe, share, or follow. Right, Zandvoort. We were back after the summer break, and it was an interesting and great summer break to return to racing. Let's start off with qualifying. It was a maiden pole for Jack Crawford after multiple red flags and tricky race conditions last Friday. He was able to lay down a 121.210 on his second attempt around the circuit. He was able to hold the pole position as 3 red flags denied the field the chance to improve. As mentioned, red flags, Dennis Hauger couldn't complete 2 of his best laps and had to settle for second, and Frederick Bessie was secured third position. Looking at reverse pole position, it was Teo Pocher. And then a few things as well to mention about the qualifying was Iwasa received a 5-place penalty after the collision with Hauger in Spa. This meant that he'll be starting 5 places from his original qualifying position in the sprint. And Richard Verschoor was given a 3-place grid penalty for the sprint race after impeding Zane in qualifying. Looking at the red flags, as mentioned, 3. We had Jehan de Rubler, who brought it out with 7 minutes remaining on the clock after spinning off the exit of turn 3. Having gone the fastest in the first sector, Juan Manuel Correa carried too much into turn 10 and spun off into the gravel trap, triggering the second red flag. And then when coming into green flag conditions, it was a 1-lap shootout with less than 4 minutes to play with. Hauger was continuing to improve, however, Novalag brought out the final third red flag, hitting the barriers of turn 3. Chaotic. I mean, I'm going to say that a lot about reviewing Zandvoort, because if qualifying kind of preluded to what sprint and feature race was going to be, that was definitely the case. What was your take, Tom?
Quali was just mad, and that's that's just the tip of the iceberg from this weekend. So F2 really delivered, and it was only quali. We haven't even got on to the race yet.
Yeah.
Both of them. If the second one even did anything. Sorry, the first one. Rather. It's I don't normally get to see quali because it's it's on a Friday when I'm working, or in this case, I wasn't working, but I had been up to Heathrow, and then I was actually stopping in to see one of our Grid Talk co-host, Mr. Horrocks, on my way back, and then popped up to see some people I know in and around Reading. I didn't actually get to see quali live, but I did watch the YouTube highlights. Or sorry, no, I watched the F1 TV highlights because I refused to pay Sky £109 a month, which is what they wanted on my renewal, to watch F1. So yeah, so I have F1 TV now, and it means I don't have to listen to Crofty. So that's always a bonus for the F1. So yes, no, so I watched the highlights when I got back. Yeah, quali was absolutely lit, as the kids say.
Oh God, as the kids say. I mean, I was able to watch it while in the midst of work because, as similar to you, we don't really get to watch quali that much in F2 and F3 because it's in the middle of a workday on a Friday, so it is quite tricky. Yeah, let's move into the sprint race. I mean, there wasn't much to report on as we only went racing for 4 to 7 turns until the first red flag went out. And then there was a few laps under safety cars a few times, but due to the heavy rain of Zandvoort and unsafe race conditions, this meant that the race was pretty much ended and no points were awarded. This gave Hajar the win, but no points. Victor Martins P2, and one of the few drivers to make moves straight away was Ollie Behrman, who started P6 and was able to take P3 on the rolling start. Now, I mean, this worked out great for Teo Pourchaire, who had to start in the pits. He was meant to be on pole for it. However, he just couldn't start up in the formation lap. So he was pretty much into P20, but as mentioned, within the 7 turns, 7 corners of Zandvoort, there was a three-way collision. Thankfully, all the drivers were okay, but it was teammates Kushmini and Ralph Watson, and also Jack Crawford. It also resulted in the Campos car on top of each other and actually broke one of the light barriers. Now, I mean, the race conditions, it was slightly raining, but you could even see in the formation lap, you couldn't see even the rain lights of the cars in front of you. Like, that was dangerous. And again, given how we have lost somebody recently today as well, remembering Antoine Hubert as well at the time of this recording, like, I just don't understand. Like, that was still unsafe. I just don't understand. And especially, it's in Zandvoort. This is also Diliano's home as well. Like, it was too much, I think, for them to even race. And even, like, F1 was delayed a few times. It was just tricky. I just don't understand why they are still not making the right calls when it comes to wet races. And especially because Zandvoort, with these turns, with this banking, a lot of these drivers have not been on this track properly as well. Like, it just didn't make sense for them to start the race at all.
Yeah, excuse me, sorry. Conditions were just. It went from. We saw it in both racing disciplines. I say both racing disciplines. I didn't watch the Porsche Super Cup, so I can't comment on the weather from that. But F2 and F1, when the rain came, it wasn't like gradually opening a tap. It was like a binary switch from on to off or off to on. Um, it was an absolute monsoon at some point, and when the rain came down, oh boy, it came down. So it was it was absolutely hammering down, and there was no way that we could have gone racing in those conditions. I know we have wet tires, and F2. Those of you listening, you may or may not know, and I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence. They don't have intermediate tires like we have in F1. They either they either have full wet tires, so your typical blue banded sidewall tires, or they have slicks. There's no in between, and yes, that does provide some good excitement in the sense that it's like that cutover, because Inters in F1 they can almost become slicks. We saw it in Turkey in 2021, for example. You don't get that in F2. You either have to gamble on softs or you have to play it safe on wets, or vice versa. Or whatever or I think it's super softs actually in F2. My mistake. It's like when they lined up to go round and they were doing some formation laps behind the safety car to clear water, it was like shooting a super soaker onto a blazing house fire. That's how much water it was clearing. It was just that it was a bit of a lost cause, and it should have been blatantly obvious that we weren't going to get to go racing in those conditions. And I know you do get some people on social media saying they're races, they should go out racing. I agree. I want to see racing, and some wet weather racing is incredible. We've had some insane wet weather races, over the last sort of decade or so, sort of in history. But other wet weather races, we've seen how it can turn out, and there's a point where safety overtakes the spectacle, and this is one of those times where safety had to prevail, and it did.
100%. I mean, looking at that replay, pretty much when the Campos car was returning because it went slightly off and hit one of the speed trap signs, the Technopros or whatever, and then it went back into the track. But obviously, because of the condition of how you couldn't see, it resulted in a car going airborne and landing on top of each other. Like, the fact that the light barrier was broken as well, that is very, very high on the track as well. Like, I'm very, again, Halo kind of saved the day for this case as well, because that was quite a scary accident for it. Like, it was just, yeah. I mean, I'm all for wet racing, but this to a point that it's too much. And I kept on mentioning in Zandvoort, the commentator saying like these wet tires can like disperse like a bathtub's worth of water like per second, but like at one point it was too much. And yes, the track does dry quite quickly, but because of how unpredictable the weather was, it made it very tricky because it would dry up and then rain heavy and then just like slowly dry up again. It was just, yeah, it was a good call to abandon it. So there was a winner, but just no points awarded. But that worked better for Teo Porcher's standings because he came into the pits because he had to start from the pit lane and from the formation lap. So he pretty much didn't move from the pit lane on the race start of the sprint race. Moving on to the feature. Well, again, so much drama, but we have a 13th top spot winner, and it was Klamon Novalak. Nobody had this. I had him on my podium for sprint, but I don't think I had him on my feature. But he won the feature race for the first time in his F2 career. Zay Maloney was able to hold off Jack Crawford for a second. He was able to manage his tires to the end and kept the pole sitter of Jack Crawford in the high-tech number 9 car behind him for his 4th podium of the season. The top 6 drivers, the top 6 in the championship standing, pretty much all experienced their own woes, with the leader Teo Porcher and the closest challenger Frederick Bessie both failing to finish after separate incidents took them out of the running, alongside Ollie Behrman and Jack Doohan with DNF. Now, we're only a 45-minute episode kind of podcast. There was so much to discuss about this race. I was watching it off and on while being slightly hungover because it was a bank holiday, to be honest. But I would highly recommend, if you haven't seen it, to definitely go watch the highlights. Like, we could spend a whole episode covering that race and just this weekend in general in detail, just looking at just the feature and qualifying on its own. What was your take of it, Tom?
Oh man, where do we begin? It was quite something, the racing this weekend. Zandvoort, I had really low expectations, to be honest, because it's a circuit where everybody says, oh, it's difficult to overtake and blah blah blah, and we could have quite a lot of accidents, which we did, but but they weren't. They weren't. We didn't have anybody actually spearing off into the barrier as such. That was mostly reserved for F1. We will talk about Fred Vesti in a minute. Was it Vesti who had a slight decoupling in the feature race, or was it someone else? I can't remember.
Yeah, Vesti had a few incidences. I mean, there was a lot.
Few?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot to cover about that feature race. Like I said, I 100% recommend you watch the highlights if you're listening to this podcast.
Seriously, yeah.
There's so much that went on.
There's just so much to go through. Yeah, I mean, just seeing Clement Novalak win, and he won from what, 12th? Was it 12th position, 13th? Something? Or I might be thinking 13th because he was the 13th new winner. But yeah, he won from somewhere in the midfield. I bet you're a happy lady as well because Zane Maloney getting P2 and holding off Jack Crawford for P3. I got to be honest, when Maloney was going around, I did think he had absolutely chewed his tires, and it did look like he had. However, he did exactly. Sorry, yeah, no, he did do exactly what he needed to do. He held him off. He put his car in the right place. Even when Crawford had DRS, because I still forget that Zandvoort has 2 DRS zones. I forget about the one in the end of Sector 2, coming to start of Sector 3. Because I was almost waiting for Maloney to just run a bit deep at turn 1, because it's a downhill braking zone. It's got a little crest on the hill, so it comes down. So as you brake, it can catch you out. So you have to brake earlier than you think, and then it's a fairly tight turn into turn 2, which can then offset you going into turn 3. Especially through the banking where there are multiple lines. So yeah, I got to be honest, I was really impressed with Maloney's race management. He realised, or maybe accepted perhaps isn't the right word, but he knew that his race was to hold on to P2, especially when Novalak got an absolutely insane safety car restart. He disappeared up the field. So Maloney, super job from him. There was some there were some really disappointing incidents, further down the order though. Definitely you go watch the highlights. So Vesti came out the pits, and both of his rear wheels came off, which was just absolutely bizarre. I don't know what caused that. The only thing I can think is that when the wheel nuts went on, they were cross threaded or something, and they came loose. But yeah, it was just odd. It was just so odd to see that. Also, I do have to say, I think it was possibly one of my best weekends for predictions.
I mean, I was about to say that as well because
I know
I got my bold one correct, and I said Anne-Marie Cordial, who is one of the 3 drivers who have not scored any points this season so far, was able to finish P8, securing 4 points for Vitorosi in the feature race. I mean, to be fair, we got people's names right, just not in the right order for a lot of our predictions, which is always the case. I mean, I said Clement as a surprise. You've said Zane. We both said Jack. I mean, the only ones that we kind of fell off of it was Vesti and Porsche. I think it was kind of the main 2 that we included that weren't really discussed or didn't have the best weekend in Zandvoort. But I mean, like I said, at the end of the season, because we have obviously we'll discuss Monza and then finishing the F3 season. We'll do a roundup to see who was the better one of predictions for F2 and F3. And I think I'm the one that's going to win it. Let's be honest, I had some good calls, even with taking a bit of a hiatus compared to your episodes as well. But yeah, I mean, moving on from Netherlands, we're back racing at the Temple of Speed, and it's one of my favorite tracks. It is the penultimate round of Formula 2 and also the final round of Formula 3. So let's start with Formula 3 first. We currently have Gabriel Bortoleto in P1 in the standings with 144 points. Followed by him with a difference of 38 is Paul Aaron. And 1 point off of Aaron, it is Pepe Marti. And Tom, we have a new driver in the paddock for the last race of the season.
Oh yeah. Blinking egg. What teams he joined? We were talking about it earlier, and I've forgotten. Is he Charouz?
Campos.
Campos. That's it. Yeah. It was a Swiss driver. What's his name? I really need you to remind me because I forgot.
I mean, it's in the chat.
It is. Yeah, it was Hugh Barter who was going. I saw it the other day and I sent it to you as well. Yeah. It was one of those things where I was just flicking through Instagram and saw it on there. That's right. Yes. Campos. Yeah, they've said that Joshua Dufek. I think I said that correctly. probably not know me. He's replaced Hugh Barter in car 25. So Dufek is coming from Frecker. He's got a pole position to his name. He's got 6 top 10 finishes. I mean, if whether it's sponsorship related, whether it's performance related, we don't know, and I'm not going to sit here and speculate because because it's that's not going to do anybody any favors. But yeah, he's in for the last race of the season. Let's it's a good shout because if Campos are maybe looking at having him full time for next year, why not give him an outing? Because there's not really much to play for in that seat. It's a bit similar to Lando. I think at the end of the 2017 season, he did. I actually remember speaking to his dad's PA because the company I worked for at the time, Lando's dad was a big client of theirs. So I remember speaking to his PA, and she said that Lando was going to Abu Dhabi because he was doing a race weekend in F2. So yeah, that was so it might be that kind of thing, just to get him, just to get Josh Dufek into the seat, because the step up from Frecker to F3, is going to be pretty big. It's probably going to be akin to the step up from F2 to F1. Because there's a lot more to the cars. Because obviously we have things like DRS and then there's more management and all the rest of it. Sophia's definitely Googled something because of the way she's just sat back and she's now looking very inquisitive. Prepare for some news any second, I would say, chat. It'll be interesting. I in the nicest possible way, I don't have any expectations because he's coming into F3. He's coming from Frecker. Wow, that's a tongue twister. So it'll be it'll be interesting to see how he does. Just looking perhaps a bit further up the grids with F3. Obviously, Gabby Bortoleto is 48 points ahead of Paul Aaron, who's in P2. Pepe Marti has obviously slipped down to P3 in the constructors. We did wonder if if Bortoleto would win the title out in Belgium, but he didn't. So, he provided something doesn't go insanely wrong this weekend, and he has a double DNF or something, and then Paul Aaron wins both events with pole position and sprint races and fastest laps and just about everything else. It does look like Bortoleto will be winning F3 this year. Let's wait and see. I'm going to be watching that one quite intently on the weekend.
Looking at other drivers as well, we have I don't think it was mentioned properly, but Francesco Simonazzi, who made his debut for Carling in Spa, is looking to still race for Monza. It's not really been announced, but it still shows him as the third driver for Carling. And then also as well, Woo-Shan Shin, the Korean driver who came in for PH racing by Shrew's last race again. He is also still standing to join alongside Sophia Flores and Roberto Farina. So there's 2 other new drivers. I mean, we had for a 33 team kind of position, we've actually had 35 drivers with all the changes from Shrew's and a few other of the drivers. So there might be even more new drivers. And in Formula 3, it is quite expensive. We mentioned, obviously, funding, sponsorships. Going back to Hugh Barter as well, it wasn't really that much for performance because he wasn't at the bottom. He was currently P18 with 14 points. His other teammates were below him. So I would like to I speculate, from my personal opinion, I think it is sponsorship because I don't think it was from a performance point of view. But yeah, I mean, let's look at the track for Monza because, like I said, it's one of my favorite tracks of the season. It's always serves up a lot of chaos, and given that it is the final round for the Formula 3 season, it should be interesting. So it's been racing since 2019. It is 18 laps for the sprint, 22 laps for the feature. Alexander Sommelier from MP Motorsport had the fastest record time of a 1:37.599 last year, thus meaning he was on pole, and reverse pole was Franco Colapinto. On the podium for sprint, it was Franco in P1, Ollie Bearman in P2, and Kyle Collette in P3. Moving on to the feature, it was all current F2 podium now, with Zay Maloney taking the top spot, followed by Ollie Bearman and then Jack Crawford. Few things to mention. There was 3 10-place grid penalties. That is the second race of 2022 season that had 10-place grid penalties. It was given during and after qualifying. First one was Juan Manuel Correa, Francesco Pizzi, and Reese Usajima all received the penalties for the sprint race after failing to slow down in double yellow flags. Additionally, Correa also had his fastest lap time deleted. In the feature race, it was originally scheduled to be run for 22 laps, but it was later red flagged on lap 18 after a collision with Kushmini and Brad Benavides that damaged Barra. However, race direction decided that the race would not be resumed, given that there was only 4 laps left of the circuit, and there was also time conditions as well, given that Formula 2 was also racing and Formula 1, which then pretty much taken to the final count of lap 15 because we had 3 safety cars from 15 to 18. So it reversed back to lap 15 standings, and because of that, Zay Maloney was able to get the win and took his 3rd consecutive feature race win as well, pretty much finishing ahead again of Ollie Bearman and Jack Crawford, who were both Prema drivers at the time. And also, it's worth mentioning, and I'm also going to mention it in Formula 2, Victor Martins won the World Championship from the pit lane while we were all waiting. That was an interesting one because it was both Victor Martins, Felipe Drugovich, and I think Max Verstappen all won in Monza, the championships. And it was chaotic because it wasn't actually due to actual racing. It was post-race or pit lane races that kind of led it to happen. So, let's go straight into predictions for Formula 3. Who do you have for your pole, podiums, and bold?
My pole position, I want to say Bortletta because he's going to have the he's going to have sort of like that bit, that bit more sort of more, this weekend, with it obviously being his being where he could, or where he'd likely will win the championship. I don't know. I'm going to go a little bit left field, and I'm going to say Paul Aaron because he has showed some seriously good. Oh, but then again, he's not so much pole position. He's more he's more. No, I'm going to stick to my guns. Bortletta's going to do it because that's always going to be focused on this weekend. He's getting the best result he can. So I think he's kind of a worthy of a lap in quali. Yeah, it's I'm thinking I'm thinking a good weekend for him, and it's going to start with a pole position. As for my podiums, my sprint podium, I'm going to say Franco Colapinto P1, Gabriel Mini P2, and I've got faith, Zach O'Sullivan P3. And then my feature race podium, I'm going to say Paul Aaron P1. I'm going to say Pepe Marti P2. And I'm going to say Gregoire Saucy P3 because I don't think Bortletta will be on the podium because I think he's going to, because I think the other drivers have got more to lose by trying to overtake. So I think his team's going to be on the radio, and he's just going to be a little bit safe because he only needs a few points to win. He doesn't need to be on the podium to win. So let's I think he's still going to win it. I think he's going to win the championship, but he's not going to be on the podium. And that, my bold prediction is that Portletto wins the championship, but he is not on either podium or on pole position. I know that counteracts what I just said, but I've got to get 1 point in this Titanic battle we're having.
So pretty much finish P4 in both races. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. That makes it very close for Paul Aaron. If it goes your way 100%, it makes it very, very close, like at least a couple points difference between Paul Aaron and Bartoletto. Okay. I think pole will be Leonardo Fulleroni. I think he will take pole, which is interesting, obviously, because that's a home race for him. I think podium for sprint, I think it will be Dino Boganovic, P1, P2, Gregor Saucy, and P3, Kyle Collette. For the feature race, I think it will be Pepe Marti. Did I say Pepe Marti for? No, I didn't. Pepe Marti, P1, Fornoli, P2, and Paul Aaron, P3. So I'm similar to you, and I don't think Bartoletto will be on podium. However, I don't think he will win the championship. I would like to see Paul Aaron maybe win it. Obviously, it would be nice to see Prema win the championship in Italy as well. We'll have a driver win the championship in Italy, because obviously we're not going to get that from Ferrari in F1, or have a race win from Ferrari. So yeah, that is mine. And then my bold is, I'm going to keep on doing this because I feel like it's quite nice. Any of the drivers who have 0 points get points in either the sprint or feature, which is going to be tricky because Monza is fast, and these drivers, some of them have not raced in this track before. Obviously, it's a lot of rookies. Some of them have raced it in FRECA and other divisions and all that, but yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, and it depends on how these new guys who are only just coming into these last couple of rounds will do. Maybe they might even get some points on the board. So let's move on to F2. We're into the second part of the doubleheader after returning to some break, and then they'll have another break leading to Abu Dhabi. So F1 has been racing here since 2017. It is 21 laps for the sprint race and 30 laps for the feature. The fastest time record is still being held by, and I really apologize for my pronunciation, Nobuo Matsuzuta for ART, which was set back in 2017 with a 1:30.982. So that does not look like it's going to be broken anytime soon. Pole last year was Jack Doohan alongside now F1 driver Liam Lawson. On the reverse pole, it was Frederick Bessey alongside another current F1 driver Logan Sargent. In the sprint, it was top spot was given to Yuri Vips, who's also making his IndyCar debut shortly at the next race of their season. Alongside Frederick Bessey was P2, and rounding out the podium was Jehan Deruvla. Now in the feature, Jehan won, Bessey was in P2, and Fittipaldi was in P3. Again, a few things to mention. Felipe Drugovich won the championship with 3 races to spare, even with retiring in the sprint race. So again, it was decided in the pit lane that he was pretty much going to win. And it was an Australia-New Zealand 1, 2, 3 in qualifying as well, which, as mentioned, Jack Doohan alongside Liam Lawson, and then it was Marcus Armstrong who is racing in IndyCar in P3 in qualifying. In the sprint race, there was a lot of penalties. Pretty much, Richard Fisher originally finished 5th, but was given a 5-second time penalty for leaving the track and gaining advantage. Marcus Armstrong originally finished 6th, but was given a 5-second time penalty for leaving the track and gaining advantage. Owasa was given a 5-second time penalty for leaving the track and gaining advantage. And Teo Porcher originally finished 6th as well, but given a 5-second time penalty for causing a collision with Liam Lawson. So pretty much it was chaotic towards the end. And in the feature, Owasa was disqualified from the race after it was found that the plank on the car was below the maximum thickness required. As a result, Enzo Fittipaldi was promoted to the final podium of the race. Predictions. What do you think F2 predictions is going to be?
Well, for Monza, oh heck, I am going to say my pole position. So I don't know because F2 is sort of like wide open at the minute. Yeah, no, that's a bit God. You see, I'm so torn between like Pourchaire or Vesti, but Pourchaire's had a bit of a resurgence, if you like. And then obviously Vesti, the wheels literally came off last week. So I don't know. I'm gonna say I'm gonna no, I'm gonna say Vesti for pole because Pourchaire hasn't had like loads of pole positions and what have you. Or certainly not like in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, my pole position. My sprint podium. I'm gonna say Roy Nissany. No, I do that every week. I'm gonna say Victor Martins P1, Iwasa P2, and Isaac Hadjar P3. Because we don't speak much about Hadjar. Maybe for a reason that could end up being a bold prediction. And then my feature race podium, I'm going to say Ollie Bearman. And then I'm going to say. I don't know because it's so. I'm not going to bother predicting Darula because he's been fairly sort of like innocuous this year. I'm going to say Bearman, and then I'm going to say Vesti P2, Premier 1-2 home race, and then go on then Pourchaire P3. But bold prediction: the championship changes. The championship leader changes.
I mean, that would work with Vesti is currently with 156 and Théo Pourchaire is with 168, so 12-point difference. That could make a plea, especially if it's a Prema 1-2, but Vesti's number 1 and Ollie's number 2. And with fastest time, he would probably switch to championship. Okay, makes sense. I think pole will be Doohan. I think for sprint race, I will say Enzo P1, Oasa P2, and Dennis Hauger P3. I think that sounds like it could be a good one. I think for the feature, I think Doohan will take P1. I think, yeah, it might be my bold as well. Doohan P1, Vesti P2, and do I want to? No. Victor Martins P3. I think
Do it.
Nah, I'm not. I mean, it still stands. If I say Zane, he's not going to get a podium, so I'm just going to leave it.
Do it.
No, I think
I
think Victor Martins deserves to have a podium here. So, because he's not been. If I look at the standings, he is not really.
He's not really been anywhere.
He's been on the podium a few, like 1 or 2 times. He won at Silverstone, but I mean, yeah, he hasn't had. And Budapest, he was on podium, but like it's just not been as consistent compared to other drivers. So I think Victor Martins will round out for P3. My bold. Now I can't remember if Josh Mason is still going to be driving for Monza. I want to believe that is correct instead of Brad.
I think
that is. Yeah, I think it's for the remaining. So I mean, I can't really give. There's only 2 drivers that need to get points, which is both Nissany and Mason for the team. I think. I say Arthur Leclerc in the points because he hasn't had the best season. I think both Dams drivers. Actually, no, not let's not do both Dams. I think both Tridents in the points. I'll go with that. Again, home race for them as well. They are both Italian teams. I think Roman Stanek and Noblock will be on the points both of them at some point in the race, if it's feature or sprint, or maybe double. Who knows? Maybe it's Trident in it. I think that's going to be my bold. Now, before we wrap up, it was just announced a couple minutes ago the new car for 2024 to 2026 for Formula 2. You can take a look at it on social media. Pretty much, it is still a Dallara, but slightly changed in chassis with a different engine size. It is still using renewable energy for 55% renewable energy for next season, in the process of it being coming into 100% by 2027. I don't like it. I'm going to say that straight away. I think the rear wing is very weird. It's like a curve, like semicircle is probably the best way to kind of explain it. It's meant to look very similar to the F1 car, but the rear wing just doesn't match with any of the cars in the F1 on the F1 grid. So that's my take of it. I mean, there's only been one testing. Tatiana Colgin was the only driver so far that has tested it. There is a handful of testing, including Felipe Drugovich testing it soon. One car will be delivered to them just before Christmas time, just after Abu Dhabi for teams to test, and then the second car will be given to them mid-January for proper shakedowns as well. I think they have about 10 to 12 drivers to do testings of shakedowns by Formula 2, not by specific drivers, but by Formula 2 directly to see how the car is. So there might be a few more changes to it, but I doubt it. But I mean, great for Tatiana to drive the first new F2 car, but it should be interesting. I'm excited to see how the data is for that with the downforce in the wing. Obviously, DRS is still a thing in Formula 2, so it's interesting because it's curved up, not curved down, compared to how you would imagine. So it'll be interesting to see how, when it opens, how it looks. But Tom, what's your quick take of it?
It looks a bit odd, doesn't it? I'm not quite sure about it. It looks like an odd spoon on the rear wing. It's a bit reminiscent of the 2017 era Merc, which they had, especially on their Monza setup. Ironically, it was. It's. I'm not sure. My first thought was when I looked at the front of the car, it looks like a baby F1 car because of the angle of the front wing and how the end plates look, how the end plates stick up and all the rest of it. It's like it looks like a miniature F1 car, but then the rear wing it looks a bit it just looks a bit off. I'm not quite sure, but also it may well serve a really good aero purpose, which is obviously its primary function. So so it might it might just be doing really well, for the rear wing. So I don't know. We will see.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the new calendar as well, which we'll mention in another episode, it will play. I think DRS is going to be a key thing. Zandvoort's taken out of the circuit, but obviously we have Qatar coming in to replace Zandvoort. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how it goes for the new seasons. Yeah, it's interesting. You can take a look on the Formula 2 website. They've just announced it on the website with the images. I'm excited to see. I think it'll be quite a nice change because the car has been kind of pretty much the same spec for ages. This is the third generation of Formula 2 car, and obviously Formula 2 has been racing. Well, F2 title has been racing since 2017. Obviously, you had GB2 before, and a few other ones before. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited for Monza. I think it's gonna be a great race weekend. I'm excited for Formula 3 to be back and to see who will be crowned the F3 champion. It's going to be a rookie, which I think is a great thing to have as well. Which I think some of us, we said in the beginning episodes of Formula Talk that it probably will be a rookie, maybe. I mean, we said Saucy as well. That was going to kind of run with it with experience, and he's just completely dropped down the order. But Formula Talk is available on YouTube, where episodes are pre-recorded and posted. Still not live. Maybe towards the end of the season, we'll see. But you can also find us on Amazon Fire, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Verbal, and Pocket Cast. Just search Grid Talk for our backlog of shows. We are the sister show of Grid Talk, which covers mainly F1 with qualifying and race review analysis and previews. Please consider supporting our channel on Patreon so we can get mics, lights, and better recording equipment. And also, again, make sure you are subscribed to be the first to know when each new weekly episode is released. We'll be back soon with plenty more supporter series content. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Tom, for joining me as always.
Sure.
And Formula Talk episode 20 was presented by Bet Online. And it's goodbye.